Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Roger Berliner named new council president. The county council takes up a microloan program and $15 minimum wage. Delegate Will Smith named to fill Jamie Raskin's Senate seat. How will this fill the vacant delegate seat? Hyattsville to allow non-citizens to vote in elections and lowers the voting age to 16. 16? Why stop there? Why not go all the way down to 12? And finally, our panel will rate the Trump transition. Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by political strategist Susan Heltemes, Republican activist Jerry Cave, Republican lawyer and former Maryland Assistant Secretary for Business and Economic Development under Bob Ehrlich, Bill Askinazi, and former Majority Leader of the Maryland House of Delegates, John Hurson. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Each December, the Montgomery County Council selects a new leader to guide the council during the upcoming legislative year. This week, the council chose Council District 1 Representative Roger Berliner as its new council president and Hans Remer as vice president. Susan, what's your assessment of these selections?
Well, Roger Berliner makes perfect sense. He was the vice president this last year, and they usually move up the next rung. He is a transportation environmentalist, and he's been the most vocal person regarding Pepco's merger throughout this whole thing. Hans Remer, I will candidly say he was a bit of surprise. He's rather quiet. He's worked on bicycling issues, walkability issues, and he also was the one who called for the nighttime task force.
Well, we needed somebody with some experience once all these members of the council leave as a result of
he's going to have his chance. And
John, the council president sets the agenda for the council, and the council member Berliner was one of those members affected by term limit referendum. How is that going to affect his role in leadership?
Well, Roger is planning on a county executives race, so I think he will try to emphasize high publicity issues for the next year because he's going to be entering a campaign. And I think that may affect it. Roger, though, is pretty standard Democrat. He's not a flamethrower, wingnut, or as you would describe it. I mean, he's pretty standard Democrat, and I think he will emphasize environmental issues, as Susan pointed out. But he's going to try for some high-profile stuff because of the election coming up.
And that leads us into our next question, because Bill, the council announced a proposal that would create a microloan program for entrepreneurs. Now, as former economic development official, what do you think of this proposal? Is this something government should be doing?
Well, first of all, it's a waste of time and a waste of money. The average loan is $50 to $500. What's a small business going to do with that? The effective tool for a government that should be used sparingly is workforce training grants. They're long-term investments. They train workers so they can fend for themselves and create the entrepreneurial spirit that government really thrives on, not these little token feel-good pieces of legislation that do nobody any good.
I believe it's up to $15,000.
The average loan is between $50 and $500.
But the point is, microloans is an activity that the private sector should be doing, not the government should
totally
be doing.
Agreed.
Should be doing this. This doesn't make any sense other than to get your name out and as you're trying to run for county executive. Jerry, the council also proposed an increase in the minimum wage. Again, it's one of these feel-good pieces of legislation, but is it a good idea?
It's a great idea to increase the unemployment rate because that's what you get when you increase the minimum wage. There's a statistical correlation. Some people are not worth $15 an hour, so they don't get a job. And it does that to young people and to people that don't have skills, so they can't get started on the ladder of getting employed. But this is the kind of thing you get out of a county council that has been in there. Berliner's been in there, like if you went into first grade, he'd been in there all the way through high school. And none of them are from the business environment. These people know nothing about business.
John, you seem to be skeptical and doubt what Jerry is saying is true.
Well, first of all, I doubt the idea that it causes unemployment, particularly in Montgomery County. I just really, if you raise it to $15 an hour, it's not going to cause unemployment in Montgomery County.
Well, and it's
number two, Roger Berliner has not been in there that long. Okay, it's he has not been in there since I've been in first grade. I guarantee it.
But if you were in first grade, he'd been there for 11 years. You'd go all the way through the school system.
Jerry's
we
Jerry's
now
right.
have term limits, so we don't have to worry about that.
Minimum wage is inflationary and it's anti-job. If I'm the owner of a small bakery and I'm hiring two 18-year-old kids, one of them is going to be fired because I'm now going to carry the burden of a state-mandated extra $20,000 a year for salaries.
Well,
That's not the
Is
government's
that,
right.
is that proven in our county?
Yeah,
I don't think
it's
that's proven in our
well,
county.
Oh, I know.
think
I really don't. We are in a kind of a bubble. We have a specific
And it's interesting to
economic
note that
pattern
County
here.
Executive Leggett, who would have to sign the legislation, is not supportive of it the way it's written. So it is possible, unless they can overturn his veto. But he doesn't like it.
All right, let's make it $20 or $25.
Let me tell you something that I think is part of this whole equation. We're going to have an administration in Washington that opposes a minimum wage of $15 for a national minimum wage.
Donald
What's
Trump
going to
did
happen?
Actually,
in
Donald
10,
Trump
though.
has kind
Well,
of
you never know.
expressed some
You're right.
interest in it,
That's
but I'm
in
hoping he
10.
forgets
Right.
about it.
10.
But I'm just telling you, what that means is jurisdictions like Montgomery County, jurisdictions across this country who feel differently are going to have their own, and they can go to 20, and they can go to 25. So you are smarter to support a minimum wage at a federal level that's correct.
Well,
And it may not be 15.
I don't agree with you. I think you should. I think it's better that the locality sets it. If the locality is foolish enough to do it, then shame on them and shame on the people.
We need to
and
raise
shame on
the
their
federal
government.
minimum
Just like we were
wage,
talking
though.
about this ridiculous thing that occurred in Hyattsville
Has
later today.
everybody in Montgomery County given up on capitalism?
We apparently so, because we're going to go into our next topic, Jerry. For political observers, election results are more than just winners and losers. It's also about opportunities. The election of Maryland Senator Jamie Raskin to fill the vacant 8th District congressional seat requires that a successor be appointed in his place. And this week, the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee chose House member Will Smith to fill the vacancy over fellow delegate David Moon. John, as a former majority leader of the Maryland House of Delegates, is this really the best way to fill these seats, to allow the party bosses to select the nominees?
Yes, it is the best way. And to call them bosses is hilarious, okay? It's the state statute, that's the way it's written. If you wanted to have special
both parties.
for both parties, if you wanted to have special elections after every one of these, so we'd have a special election for this seat, and then we'd have a special. No one would show up, okay? And that's not a good
so how
thing.
many members
have like 500
how many members
people
are on the
selected.
Maryland Central Committee?
The Montgomery County in 28, I believe.
So you have 28 people deciding who's going to represent this district,
Okay, so-
And they're
the
countywide.
voters in that
look-
district.
none of them showed up.
Look at the results here, okay, for a minute. Will Smith was elected by District 20 to be a delegate. The entire district. It's not like he's an unknown factor, okay? So rather than set the whole thing in motion again for all these people to jump into this race,
What's
you
wrong
have
with
some
that?
you have some Democrats who decide who's going to replace this guy for the remainder of his term, 2 more years, and then this guy's got to run for re-election.
But he's got
It's
the
not
power of
the end-
incumbency. It's the
it's
bosses selecting who should be
Casey,
the incumbent.
it is
and
not-
you know it. You're smiling.
Casey,
you
it's-
know that.
No,
you
what
can't
I'm
even keep
smiling,
a straight
what I'm
face
smiling
on
at,
this.
it is not the end of the world. Okay,
Susan,
2
it's a
years.
state
All right.
senate for 2
So,
years.
so now that we got the fix in for Will Smith, the musical chairs doesn't stop, and so who's going to replace Will Smith in the House of Delegates?
Well,
let me guess. The Montgomery County Central Committee gets to pick that guy too, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And
another 28 guys.
great,
get to
another
make-
special election.
As a
Right.
former county boss, as you described me, I had the privilege, the honor of doing this a few times. It does save a lot of money. I think there could be a time frame, but in this case, where you have a delegate, John's absolutely right, there'd be 2 elections. You couldn't get them done before the new session. But I'm hearing there could be as many candidates for Will's vacancies as there were Republican candidates for
They're
president.
not candidates.
So what
They're
happened to you?
supplicants. They're supplicants.
Okay, let me get to the supplicants. They are. You asked me a question. Let me finish. Okay. There are a couple of names, and I have to have them in front of me so I get them right. Janelle Welkins, who is a civil rights activist and a member of the Central Committee. Lori Cherkudian, she's the executive director director of community mediation of Maryland. She's also a Tacoma Park activist. Then there's Darian Unger, who ran for this seat. There's another guy named Daniel Cloma, and there could be dozens more.
Okay. So
And a
this is
dog
a
and
good
a-
So
idea.
that's the answer.
So I think that it is a logical answer
And
because
who's got the inside position?
I think, from what I'm hearing, that it'll either be Janelle Wilkins or Lori Trikudian.
And why is that?
Because of their
I mean, what have they
experience,
done?
for one thing. As I said, Janelle is a civil rights activist, and Lorg is very active in Tacoma Park. They're both have been around. They're smart women.
Okay.
And
There's
they're
a
going
lot
to
of
be the
political
sign
power for 13 people on the central
No,
committee.
there were 28 people
All right,
voting.
Yeah, but they only
Well-
need a majority, so it's 15.
Oh, good God.
And on that note, when we come back from this short break, the city of Hyattsville unanimously agrees to allow non-U.S. citizens the right to vote in city elections. And guess what? Our panel's going to give their assessment on the Trump transition. And you know what? You're not going to want to miss that. Stay tuned. And welcome back. Even the most casual political observer must often wonder if unfettered democracy is a wonderful thing. No better example occurred this week when the city of Hyattsville unanimously agreed to allow non-U.S. citizens the right to vote in city elections and lowered the voting age to 16. Bill, why did the city of Hyattsville join 6 other municipalities, all in Montgomery County, Tacoma Park, Barnesville, Garrett Park, Glen Echo, Martin's Addition, and Somerset, in granting the right to vote to non-U.S. citizens?
Why? In an unabashed attempt to broaden the voting population. It's outrageous. It's unconstitutional. Well, let's enfranchise felons to vote. Let's now lower the voting age to people who are not citizens. What we're doing is we're increasing the population who shouldn't be enfranchised to vote, and that to me is outrageous. I think it's unconstitutional.
Susan, don't you think that citizenship should have a privilege and be given special status? Or are you all in favor of this?
Yes, and that's why people like the president, Governor McAuliffe, and others give rights back to felons when they get out. There should be, we do have rights, but in municipalities, they have the right to make their own rules. And if they pay taxes, why should they not?
Because they're not citizens. That's why they should not.
Did you want me to say that? I mean, I'm not going to, so
I know.
there you are.
No, you asked the question. Jerry, Hyattsville also lowered the voting age to 16. Now, we all know 16-year-olds are stupid. So why did they lower the voting? 18-year-olds are stupid. Why did they lower the voting age to 16?
40-year-olds are
So what's the difference? If they're going to give it to illegals, now they're giving it to the inappropriately young. And the thing is yes, cities and states have rights, but they don't have the right to be wrong. They don't have the right to subvert our citizenship. And by the way, we're not an unfettered democracy or anything else. We're a republic, and we're that for a reason. But the thing is what we should have in this country is we should have, like they have in India that is impoverished and most of the people aren't educated, we should have voter ID so that the whole county, the whole state, and all the states
So your
make
entire,
sure that
your
they
entire
are not.
party is in charge of de-enfranchising.
All you
people
do is
who
listen
live
to
in
you
the-
two guys.
Look,
That's
I
what
want
you're
to
saying.
wrap this up.
Tacoma Park
because
changed it to
I think-
16, and
Let's
I don't.
make sure people can't vote.
I
That's
don't-
what
No,
you're saying.
that is
I don't-
absolutely
Wait a
not
minute, wait a
true.
minute,
What
guys.
I'm saying is
Hold on.
legal
That's what it is.
citizens should
Hold on.
vote, and that's all.
I don't think 16 is a good idea. Our mind actually stops growing at 25. I think 16 is a bit
All right,
young.
well, I want to wrap this up because this is a minor issue. We got more important things
No,
to talk
this
about.
touches on major issue, Casey.
Thank you, Jerry.
I disagree.
Next time you host, you can set the agenda. Panel, let's turn our attention to the Trump transition. And this week, the president-elect announced the following: fast food president Andrew Puzder to head the Department of Labor, and Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt to head EPA. Yeah, that's Scott Pruitt, global warming denier, and not even Al Gore saw this one coming. So, panel, what's your assessment of the Trump transition? And we're going to start with Bill. How would you rate the transition so far?
It's deliberate. Clearly, it's studied and it's predictable. I mean, what else would you expect? There are people who are going to be named as conservatives. Trump is being true to Trump. in being true to his form, and he's nominating people who are not political hacks, people from the outside, but are people who believe in what they said, right from the EPA all the way down to the Defense Department. The generals that are stacked are militaristic to some extent, but they're proven. They've been there. And I think it's consistent with Trump's policy, so I'm not surprised.
All right,
you know,
John.
I'm not surprised either. I agree with that. He has nominated billionaires, military generals, and right-wing activists.
How
I mean, that's
dare he.
exactly what he's done.
my
It's
gosh.
not. No, I think
That's
it's
his mandate.
I agree.
That's
I think it's totally
thing.
predictable.
And you know
but
what?
the
Wait a minute,
fact
I
of
wanna-
the
I
matter
wanna break
is,
in here.
it's really going
sorry.
to. The whole pledge of bringing America together.
No, his job
it's
is not to
gonna
bring
do
it together.
Well,
his job is to put in
that's what he
people.
said.
His job is to put
Jerry,
in office people who are
Jerry,
competent, and he is
said,
putting winners.
he said
You
on
let
election
somebody else
night,
get a word
he
in
said
edgewise?
election night that he was going to bring the country together.
Yeah, he's going to
This
do that
is
by
not
making the
bringing it.
country prosperous,
Yeah,
and he's
driving the
and he's
rest of
putting
us
in-
out.
Jerry,
God's
Jerry, hold on.
I haven't said a word the
John,
whole show.
John.
These two people talk the whole time.
President Obama in 2008
Yep.
famously is quoted as saying, elections have results.
Right.
And this is the result.
I agree. I totally agree. But he said, let's bring the country together.
Well,
He didn't say he was going to do that for the cabinet. And what do you want him to do? Put in a bunch of losers? That people that weren't successful in the military, weren't successful in business? He's doing exactly as Bill said. He's putting in conservatives. They're qualified. Even the Washington Post had to call them qualified. And the best part of all, Casey, is it drives these guys nuts.
Well, we're going to find out. Because, Susan, I know this is a hard question for you. But is there any cabinet nominee that you like?
Well, they certainly wouldn't be the same picks that the 2.7 million vote expert didn't get
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
will say this, they are the wealthiest and they are the least experienced in modern history. Donald Trump said again yesterday, I'm going to elect
Susan,
appointed wealthy people, and he said
answer the
he
question.
compared them to athletes. When you have an attorney general candidate who couldn't become a judge because he was turned down, when you have a small business,
The answer is you don't like the
no, they're the
He
most.
couldn't find any.
They are.
Actually, I
so,
disagree with you. On one, I think his appointment to General Mattis, is it?
But he has to get a dispensation to get in.
I know, but I think he's actually, I've heard that he's actually not a mad dog. Which
Well,
his little
and
title
he is
but-
going to be a
but he's
balanced
actually
to
okay.
Flynn.
Yeah,
These are
I think he's
business
probably
people
good.
with business mandates. They've been there. They've done that. That's what this country has
But
lacked for 8 years under Obama.
But
There's been no business
education
people.
who doesn't
None.
like public
And
education.
people that aren't
That's why we have the
successful.
most poverty that's gone up in the last 8
Well,
years.
No, it hasn't.
I got a question for Jerry, and as this debate is showing, the nomination of many of the people on the cabinet, and particularly Tom Price to head Health and Human Services, Andrew Puzder at Labor, and Scott Pruitt at EPA, seems to draw opposition from the left. So is Trump deliberately looking to pick a fight with Democrats so early in his administration?
What Trump has done is he's picked people that are experienced in these issues, and you may not like it, but he has litigated against the EPA. He knows what he's doing. Puzder has actually hired people, which in great contrast to Democrats. So, and Price, I've met him and listened to him speak. He's a great guy, and he's a doctor. So what Trump has done is pick good people, and he's also established that he is the top dog in this thing, and he has the most power in the beginning, and he's putting in good picks right from the beginning. And the fact that the Democrats don't like it is just too bad, because what we need is some balance. We've had an extreme tilt to the left for the last 8 years, and we need to bring this thing back and create jobs in this country. And these are the people that are going to help us
And
get
that's
back on
why
track.
you have-
And these people are not only experienced, Susan, they're experienced at being successful.
And that's why you have a HUD secretary whose only experience with housing is to have lived in poor inner city and who.
You know, sometimes it does take a brain surgeon, and Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson, is the world's foremost pediatric brain surgeon. So don't tell me the
Who
guy's not
said-
smart enough to get the job
who
done.
said he's never managed anything and really doesn't have the qualifications to run anything. Yet that who is running HUD, he has never run anything, and based on what I've heard, he doesn't really have the temperament to run anything either. So that will be most
You know, I haven't
interesting.
heard that he's ill-tempered, but I have met Dr. Ben Carson, and we are very lucky to have him take a leadership role for this country.
housing.
And,
Wait,
and,
wait,
and
but
you
I
know
wanna-
what? This is not brain surgery, but the guy is a brain surgeon.
But let me ask
so
you-
if it is, he'll do it.
Susan, let me ask you a question. I mean, you're very dismissive of Dr. Carson and the fact that he lived in poverty and he lived in housing projects. Who better to know the ill
Evils.
effects of living in impoverishment than this guy who has risen from the depths of it to become a leading person in his industry.
Who, when he was growing
it's
up,
not just economic policy.
wait a minute, but when he grew up, his mother took advantage of welfare issues with those other programs, and now he has said there shouldn't be any handouts and that private charities should cover all of this needs. There is no way that private charities can cover all this need. Although with the wealthy administration, maybe they'll put in the kitty and
Susan,
give it to.
you know, I mean, you're falling into the trap of listening.
That's what Ben Carson said.
You're falling into the trap
Of listening?
Of listening to it's a cabinet of billionaires. What's wrong with people who are wealthy and
Let me
have
tell
been
you something else
successful?
about
You
that.
think that any of the people from Goldman Sachs that served in the Clinton or Obama administration weren't wealthy?
Do we have a Goldman Sachs person yet? Commerce, right?
Let me
No,
tell you something
no,
else. Dr. Ben
Treasurer.
Carson's got a
Treasurer.
heart of gold.
Well, you know,
Doesn't make you a cabinet.
You know what?
person.
We got almost a month before the inauguration.
More fun.
And we're going to have a lot more fun because there's still many pieces to the cabinet that haven't been filled, particularly that of Secretary of State, and that's going to be a big one. Stay tuned for parting shots when we come back from this. Susan. And welcome back. Now with parting shots, Bill Askinazi.
Yes, big shout out, Potomac Women's Republican Club. I attended their luncheon last week. 250 new members. Wow. There is a resurgence of fiscal conservatism in Montgomery County. Yes, I said Montgomery County. Watch out, 2020. There's going to be a very intelligent movement.
It's very interesting. John Hurson, your parting shot.
The passing of John Glenn, a true American hero. We should all be proud of him and his life. I met him once in his Senate office. We had a group of visiting foreigners, and I was escorting them around. He was delightful, simple, honest. I also supported him in 1984. He was a moderate, part of the DLC contingent that really tried to bring the Democratic Party, away from the far left of the McGoverns and more towards the Clintons of the party. A real gentleman, a true American hero.
Thank you, John. Susan, your parting shot.
I'm just filled with good news today. I am thrilled that President-elect Trump is going to keep his title and get money again from The Apprentice. I was worried about his income level. Next, 73-year-old Mick Jagger became a father for the 8th time yesterday, but he is also a great-grandfather. Cheerleading was approved today by the International Olympic Committee as a sport, which lays the groundwork next Summer Olympics. We're going to have cheerleading. And finally, on a serious note, County Executive Leggett is going to be honoring the 4 Montgomery Countyans who won gold medals in the Olympics this summer. 19th of January, a week from Monday, the Silver Spring Civic Building, 7 o'clock. Come and celebrate something positive about Montgomery County.
Thank you, Susan. And Jerry Cave, your parting shot.
New concept called fake news. Now, 70 reporters were caught in the email scandal that they had colluded with the Democratic candidate, which makes them ethically even more crooked than Crooked Hillary. And their news organizations jerry-rigged, different spelling, by the way, jerry-rigged the model basis for the polling to predict that she would win in order to suppress the truth and suppress the vote for conservatives. It didn't work, but the people you think are newsmakers, they are the real news fakers.
Thank you, Jerry. I want to thank the panel for being here tonight. I was sorry that last night I was not able to join our panelist, John Hurson, at his industry party because it was being held at the Hay Adams Hotel. And what a magnificent view from the Hay Adams, looking across Lafayette Square at the White House. I think I envy you and I envy your organization for having the ability to, because I still believe that looking at the White House in the winter just takes your breath away. And I'm looking forward to the changes that we're going to have. And of course, we've got another show next week. We're going to make predictions for 2017, and won't that be fun? So for 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken. I want to thank the panel for being here, and I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. Good night.